All right, guys, we are live. Thank you for tuning in to Beard of Darkness book reviews. Man, I've been so pumped. So, how I found out about B.A. Turner through John A. Douglas's channel, and I've been intrigued about what he's doing ever since. It's very unique, and I can't wait to talk about it with him. How are you tonight, B.A. Turner?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
Doing pretty good, man. It's been one of those days, pretty relaxed. Just been hanging out, cleaning the house, taking care of the babies and whatnot.
Yep.
I'm loving your background, dude. I need like lighting like that.
Thank you, thank you.
Of course. So, man, where do we start, right? So we have a lot of cool stuff, guys. Um, there's a lot of cool details about what he is doing as an indie author that is very unique, and I can't wait to dive into it. So, before we go through the process, a little bit like what we were talking about before we came on, first, tell us about the novels. Okay, so we've got Of Blood and Stone and Mortal Defiance, right?
hmm
Okay, so give us maybe an overview of the duology.
Yeah, so it is a healthy mixture of urban fantasy and science fiction, and it is about a gargoyle and a team of vigilantes fighting terror in Detroit. Terror, which is headed by a maniac named Incubus, who has unearthed the Nazi-era mind control serum that allows him to enter the subconscious of his subjects to bend their minds to his will so that he can create super soldiers to take power over the city of Detroit and beyond. So if you're a fan of Hellboy, obviously the Gargoyles TV series, things like that, this is tapping the same vein. It has a lot of biblical and supernatural lore. And so, anybody that was a fan of the Supernatural TV series or any books that tap those veins, this is that same feel. So,
I love that. That's what. So my mind first, there's two things. Was the gargoyles feel? I don't know your age, but I was born in '90, and I grew
mhm,
up watching that cartoon, and that's one of the things I thought, man. And then I was reading through the other piece, which I'll show in a second, the visual piece,
yeah,
and the biblical lore. And man, my mom and dad are from. Well, my mom's actually from Detroit, and
mhm,
my dad's from Upper
nice,
Michigan, Grayling, Michigan.
yeah,
So the Michigan touch, I was just like already in.
yeah. I'm
Um,
from there too, so yeah.
where at?
I was originally from the Lapeer area, so up in farm country, but I spent all of my college years and good 10 years after that around the Detroit area working. So yeah,
So we've beat Ohio State 3 years in a row now, man. It was about time we got some wins, dude.
exactly. Yep.
Uh, I've been a fan since I was, old enough to watch football, but
Yeah.
especially remember those times when like in '93 we won the national championship and then just lost all through the
Yep.
early 2000s. They just got hated on. We're making a comeback,
Yep.
but so the dual. So you can or go ahead and explain a little bit how you can order these books. I'm going to show them what you sent me, and this
Yep.
is so cool. So there's two novels, guys, and there's also a duology, which
Mhm.
the art is so crazy. It stretches all the way to the back. It's wonderful, and it's a nice size. You really, it just reads nice. Like
Yeah.
it's just, I love the feel of it. And along with that, um, there's a visual. It looks like almost like you're about to read a comic book, and you go through, and there's characters. So, kind of explain what you did with this duology, with the visual aid, and then I'm just gonna show up these graphics that you sent me as well.
hmm Yeah. So I've always been a big reader, but also a big fan of comic books as well. And so, I started writing these novels about 8 years ago. And during that time, I got really into comic book movies and comic books themselves. And, my plan was to eventually create both, but I wanted to create the most immersive reading experience possible for the novels. And in order to do that, it means providing some visual aspects, meaning art. And so what I decided to do was create a mini comic that introduces all of the major and supporting characters, provides key information about each, and then depicts several of the major scenes from the novel series. So when you go through this mini comic, you get to actually see all the characters as they were meant to be visualized. And then it also tells you exactly where in the book that scene takes place, and it's in order throughout the book. So the whole goal there is, as you're reading, a lot of times you put the book down, you might pick it back up after a couple days, and you're trying to retrain your mind on, well, how did he describe the character? So sometimes when you're reading, you're trying to focus on piecing together the visuals in your mind versus the context of the scene.
Mm.
And so the goal here is you can always go back to that mini comic. Ah, now I remember exactly how these characters look. So as you're reading, it's like there's a film playing out in your mind. You don't have to focus on how everything looks because it's ingrained in your mind, and you can focus on the scene, the action, everything, versus trying to worry about what does everything look like, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the goal there.
So this is what he's saying. So I
Mhm,
don't. I hope you guys can see it a little bit at the top here. He's introducing characters, and then where in the book they're introduced,
mhm,
right? And just some things in case you could see it, like the species, their height and weight, their age, their abilities,
mhm.
their skills, and some miscellaneous things. So it's like you're going through this novel, but you also have this beautifully, very high quality to these pages are nice and thick. They're shiny. It's amazing. It's truly impactful. Uh, it's just I've never heard of that,
Mhm.
and it's so unique, and I'm so excited to be talking about it because it's so. We talked a little bit before you come on, and some people look at this and they're like, oh, he does comic books and that's it, and rather you would like to say you do what if you had like something you could say to those people who think it's just a comic book or just a novel. What would you say to that?
I would say I'm a hybrid creator. So I create novels and I'm also creating comics. The
Mm,
goal is to eventually do full comic issues, but also do more novels. So you can experience both. And when I do crowdfunding campaigns, there's something for every medium, right?
mm,
Because there's very few writers that have done both. The most influential is Marv Wolfman, who created Teen Titans, Deathstroke, but he also wrote the novel adaptation to the Arkham series and video game series.
wow.
So, to be able to do both and provide that entertainment to all of those readers, I think would just be really rewarding. And as a creator, you know in your mind how you imagine your characters. And being able to put that on paper and
Oh,
actually see it, but also see it enhanced because my artist was able to just really, really make these characters just perfect. It was just so rewarding because it's like, oh man, these characters feel real. Like they're right there. And then to share that with the readers, man, it's so cool. And whether it's your cover art or if you do something like this, nothing beats having art that really, really brings those characters to life. So it's a better reading experience, right?
100%. And I can tell that I'm talking to somebody who knows what they're saying as far as that visual, that passion you feel in
Mhm,
doing what you're doing, man. It's so cool. So we'll go over here in a minute about what you're doing as far as the crowdfunding thing. Because
mhm,
I think that's super cool. One of the other things, real quick, that was in the back of the visual aid, the comic to go like with the characters and stuff was this. It's like me and so many other people. I'm sure it's like little things like this
mhm,
that I can just like put on my bookshelf or like oh I'm a geek over it.
mhm.
So you've got Incubus here, right?
Yep, yep.
I
Yeah,
think that's so sick.
that's what I love about, crowdfunding and, you know, doing the visual aspect as well as I can provide a lot of extra goodies, right? When you put something on Amazon, it, especially if they print it, it's really hard to be able to package together something that has, whether it's a comic or a trading card or prints or bookmarks. Like I wanted to provide the full experience. So,
Mm.
with all the bundle packages, you get the oversized bookmarks, which you have, and so it's like there's just so many extra little things that just enhance the experience, and just to have that control over the packaging, the quality, every aspect of it was really important to me. So,
It, like,
yeah.
really makes it yours,
Hmm.
because I can imagine some in a position that I hope to be sooner than later, where I'm like, where do I want to publish or print through, and how do I want to do it? And
Yeah.
instead of just doing the Amazon thing, I'm super excited to talk about what you're doing with the Indiegogo, because
Yeah.
that's really cool. We will get to that. I think it's more important first to kind of learn about the books themselves, and then this super unique way that you're doing. Uh, I think you're gonna start. You're paving a way,
Mhm.
because it's such an attractive idea as somebody who wants to create and be do novels and also the comic. Like,
Mhm.
it's very unique. I love it. So tell us a little about your inspiration behind starting this whole thing. What was like, man, I'm
Mhm.
going to do this.
Yeah, so it was interesting. When I was younger, my first exposure to reading was Animorphs. I
Yes.
absolutely loved Animorphs. I had all the books. Like when I was, between like 8 and 12, that's what I read every day. And then, once I got into high school, my whole life was basketball, right? I
Mm,
didn't pick up a book, even if I was supposed to for school. But when I got, into later into high school, I really got into the Smallville TV series.
ooh,
I got in
yeah.
a really bad accident, and I was basically in bed rest for like 6, 7 months. And I watched that series over and over during that time. And that really got me into heroes, superheroes, and vigilantes. And then we entered that era of just a gold mine of comic book movies, right? You had all the Marvel movies, and you had films like Inception that were just like mind benders as well.
Yeah.
And I got really heavy into some of the grittier DC films that Nolan and Snyder did. And then was going through a really bad time in my life.
Mm,
And like I needed an outlet of some kind. And I had this idea for years, actually after getting a tattoo of a gargoyle, of just this gargoyle standing atop of a cathedral, looking to, you know, save citizens of Detroit specifically. And like I got to that point in my life where I just one night just had to do something, and I just sat down and started writing and absolutely fell in love with it. The next morning, I woke up, wrote for hours, and it just became a daily thing. My lunch at work, I'm writing. I get home, I go to Starbucks, I write. And that got me through that really difficult time in my life. And then once I started to see the light, essentially, I realized like I want to make this story so that it helps other people through a dark period in their time or in
mm,
their life, right? Something
yeah.
that can inspire them, help them through it. And so yeah, I kept writing for about 5 years until I got these two novels done. And then I was like, I want to take this a step further and help them see the characters come to life, give them the full experience, and yeah, just provide them with a reading experience that is visually stimulating but also emotionally stimulating, and maybe could actually help them in life, and that would be
Mm.
more rewarding than anything, because that's what it did for me, the story. So
If that's not one of the best foundational stories to why you wrote, man, that I've ever heard, and one that I can personally relate to in a lot of ways, that's really inspiring, because I think we've all been in a dark place in our life, and we've been desperate to find that outlet where we can just kind of be ourselves, or kind of take ourselves out into the light. And to have done that
mhm.
and found that thing that really just you're passionate about, man, that's awesome. It's a wonderful story. I'm so glad that you told us about it. That's brave, man. That's super cool. I love it. I do want to shout out real quick before we dive a little deeper some people that are here, man. I love all these guys. Thank you guys for being here. Of course, Book Mama. This is about to be badass. Oh, that's you. So Free Wolf, man, thank you for popping in. Tim McKay, of course, my guy, indie author. Tim McKay, hey, howdy. Howdy to you, my friend up in Canada. That was my Canadian accent. Terrible, probably. Matt Jones, another wonderful indie author. Man, thank you for being here. Yes, I'm so glad you said that, Tim. It's man, this has been uh, one of the like I get anticipation feelings, the feeling of anticipation when I know that something's going to be very unique or um, different than, or maybe like what I said earlier, how you're kind of paving this path that I think a lot of people will follow, man. Um, but yeah, we'll get into that. E.L. Montague, thank you, man, for being here. Of course, you're always here. Thank you. Chris Navo, of course, has a wonderful booktube channel. Greetings all. I came only to hear gargoyles and already sold. There you go.
Oh yeah, a lot of gargoyles.
Oh man, not a lot of people are like, hey, you remember the 90s gargoyles cartoon? Like, not a lot of people are saying that. And
That's
oh, I'm so
crazy.
glad you did.
Yeah,
Bibliotheory, man, one of
thank
the
you.
newer booktube channels that I'm just obsessed with. I was telling my wife about you and showing her some of your videos today. Bibliotheory,
Mhm.
super happy you're here. um, Book Mom also says that she seconds that the art is incredible. um,
Thank you.
of course, yeah. Knoxwich Book Life, thank you so much. She's always here. She's always here. I love seeing these people who are always here. It's just so refreshing and inspiring. um, Chris, he also says, "Whoa, those rock!" I think I was showing up the visual aids, the
Hmm.
square pieces, the graphics. Let's see here. Brian D. Anderson, man, thank you for being here. I should be writing, right? I see those comments, the authors that come to watch, and they're like, I just couldn't. I had to click it. I should be writing, but I promise I always aim to make anybody I chat with, whether it's an author or an illustrator, anything, to be. I'm after knowledge. I'm pursuing knowledge. I'll make it worth your time.
Yeah, hopefully we
Um,
can, give some inspiration that'll kickstart that writing even more so.
Absolutely. Chris did have a question. He says, "Have you attended Comic Cons? Any planned attendances for 2024?"
Yeah, I have done two of them so far, and they go really, really well. Even and that was before I had the mini comic 100% complete. So if you have some, you know, cover art that can really draw folks in, something unique or characters or creatures, it'll pull people to your table. And so I actually plan on doing a lot of cons this upcoming year, hopefully a couple really large ones just to test the waters. I've done more small ones so far, but with having the mini comic now and it being a comic centric, event, I'm really excited to see how that goes, and to be able to have all those products at once is really exciting. So,
Man,
yeah.
yeah, that's my favorite part of what you're doing. It really is. Because yeah, I can just imagine like being you. You go to this con and you just got everything. You're not making promises. You're giving
Hmm.
results instantly.
Yep.
Um, Chris, or sorry, John A. Douglas, the guy
What's up,
who
John?
introduced you or introduced me to you. He says, I just got done with my stream showing up to support my man, B.A. Turner. Yes, guys, I found B.A. Turner through John A. Douglas's site. Just one of those
Yeah.
things. I was kind of just scrolling through and boom, I said, I have to have him on the show, talk to him about what he's doing. And little
Yep.
did I know it was going to be so unique.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Everyone needs to sub to John's channel. He does great interviews as well, and he just released the Black Crown, so everyone needs to pick that up on Amazon for sure.
John, it's like you talked to him right before me or something. He's filling in
Yep.
everything for me.
Oh yeah.
Look at that, dude. It's just, I'm so happy for him. I'm so glad that he's got it out there. He's got his baby out in the wild, as they like to say.
Oh yeah.
Um, Brian D. Anderson, I like to say I tell on him because his name on YouTube is a Renegade Bard, but little does he know, I know his real name. I think it would be strange to write for comics. I imagine the artist does the job of setting the scene rather than doing it with prose. Is it an adjustment? Is that correct first? And if so, is it an adjustment?
Yeah, now since this is just a mini comic, I haven't written a full comic yet, and It is definitely a huge transition because you have to find that balance of being able to tell the story with art versus a little bit of prose and dialogue, right? You can only tell so much with the art, and you only have so much space with the prose
Mm,
or the dialogue. So, when I do a full comic issue, I'm gonna definitely be teaming up with an experienced writer just to make sure, again, it's tailored and it's the best product possible. Because yeah, it's definitely a different animal. That's for sure. But the artist is key, right? Make sure that someone can bring your characters to life and be able to actually tell that story. But what's cool about this is that when I do that full comic issue, the story's done. I
mm,
can literally, the artist can use my existing prose as reference material, right? Because that's the hardest part about a comic is you got to provide reference material, whether it's visual or, textual to your artist. And a lot of times you're actually doing layouts for them, you're trying to do storyboarding. It's a whole process. But if you have a novel that you're converting, I
mm.
think it literally saves you at least 30-40% of the heartache and the struggles. So I'm really excited to dip my toes into that water. So
You kind of just answered one of the questions I had personally. I was just telling my wife the other day, it's like looking at comics, and I'm not haven't been thrown into comics before.
mhm,
That's not something that I was like thought that I loved, but I'm finding out just like sci-fi. I didn't think I was a sci-fi guy. That
hmm,
I'm also in love with this as much as I am finding out with sci-fi that I, just didn't predict me loving, and finding out that I am. So that's super cool in itself. But would you like to shout out your artists?
yeah, yeah. So for most of the cover art and interiors, it's Corey Barton, who's a phenomenal artist out of Australia. He and his brother both are artists. What's really cool about Corey is that he does line work, inking, and coloring, which is very rare. You usually have to hire someone to do the pencils, someone to do the inking, so adding in the blacks essentially, and then hire a colorist and a
Wow.
letterer. So you have to have a full team. But Corey is a master of that craft. He can do every single part of it. So that really helped, again, having that one point of contact and having his expertise to improve it. So yeah, yeah. And then also Elliot Rodriguez out of Peru did a couple interior pages, and he did that black and white print that you had shown at the beginning. And then Joe Ball, who's a really well-known artist, especially for black and white art. He has a crowdfunding campaign called Death, Death, Death that is a 300-page like graphic novel, and
Wow.
it's like cheap too.
Wow.
And he did the cover art for the black and white mini comic and the duology that you have there. Just crazy
It's
detail.
crazy detail. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you're not going to be able to see everything on the camera, guys. But when I
yeah,
look at this, it's like there's nothing. There's everything, is what I mean. Is there's
yeah,
nothing like left to imagine. Everything is there,
yeah,
and it's just amazing. It's wonderful.
yeah.
Um, and it also has like this illusion thing where it's kind of upside down on each side. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, what I started on a little tangent and forgot where I was going with it, but you reminded me. The reason I brought up my love of now comics and sci-fi, which I didn't think I had, was the process in which they're made. I was like,
Mm,
like I said, I was telling my wife, like there has to be such an intensive process to not only writing like a graphic novel or a comic, but
yeah,
I mean, the art is just to sit and have a whole, essentially a book full of nothing but art is got to be
yeah.
time intensive to the nth degree.
Oh yeah, yeah. That and I mean, there's just so much communication you have to do with your artist. There's so much editorial, work to it from the artist's perspective and your own, to make sure it's everything that you are looking for. And then it's extremely costly. I mean, extremely
Mm,
costly. It's, people don't realize to have a really high quality artist and do a full, like, 30 page comic book with all those different creators, right? Especially if you have to split it up. I mean, you're talking, five digits, $10,000 plus dollars. So, a novel is everyone knows here. It's expensive to create a novel, especially with quality cover art, to pay for an editor, right? Um, but comics, ooh,
That's like a whole
that
nother
that
beast.
and that's why crowdfunding is so important for folks that aren't working with major publishers because I mean, not many people have tens of thousands of dollars just sitting in the bank for creative projects. Otherwise, we'd all be so happy.
Yeah. So
So,
you're touching on a point, is really why I'm here, just giving people like you and so many others a place to shout about what you're doing. Because
mhm,
man, it's not that like, so not saying, so a lot of traditional published people also have like a day job and this and that, but 99% of indie people that are publishing, it's like this is an ambition project, and
mhm,
they hope for the best, but it's like they got a 9 to 5. You guys have a 9 to 5, and it's like kids, the career.
mhm,
And then you also have this passion that you're not just saying, oh, I don't have the time for that. You're throwing yourself into that as well.
mhm,
So it's just what I'm getting to is it inspired me early on in this channel, and I fell into talking to people like yourself. And
mhm.
I really respect it, man. It's super
Thank you.
inspiring, of
Thank you.
course. And bibliotheory, that's what I said. I was like,
Oof.
someone say Animorphs, man. I just remember those every single school fair or like the book fairs we had.
Yep. So
So
good.
cool.
And the TV show was, and a lot of people don't know there was a TV show
I
for
had no clue.
three seasons back in probably the late 90s, early 2000s. Um, Highly recommend it. It might be on Amazon right now on Prime,
Mm,
but very, very cool. I mean, very, very cool. Yeah.
I have to
Love
check that
that
out
that
now.
series. Yeah.
Definitely have to check that out because I was that's what I was going to say. I recommend an author to you. Have you ever heard of a guy? His name is Mike Molman.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's an indie author, and I had his books right in front of me before when I moved my. Oh, there it is. Becoming a Druid. Becoming
Hmm.
a Druid is book number
Yeah.
one, but he has a lot of influence from Animorphs.
Yeah.
And like the first page is like him turning into a bunch of different animals, the main character. So
Nice.
just kind of like a real quick rec that you may enjoy. He's also
Oh
an
yeah.
indie author. So if you want to throw some support his way, man, I bet you'd be really into his stuff.
Oh yeah. I'll have to check that out.
For sure. Josh, man, thank you for popping in. Really appreciate that, guys. He's got some cool stuff coming out very soon, early next year. Excited to chat and work with him. Um, Neil Montague says, what I love about these interviews is that we meet authors I wouldn't have otherwise. That is the goal, guys. That's it right there. It's like I find so much joy in like finding these treasures. You're a treasure, man. It's so fun to talk with you. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh,
And I'm
likewise.
so thank you. And I'm so sorry, Tim. The Canadian accent hurt your soul. Get used to it, man, because I'm gonna throw it out there. I've got some other ones in the rounds here. Um, Hail the Lord. Thank you for being here as well, man. I've never heard a proper Canadian accent. Well, you're not going to hear it here either because it's going to be super bad. But we're going for some laughs here. That's always so. We can all just laugh. That's the best thing. And then we've got one of the best book reviewers in the world here,
Oh,
Beth
nice.
Havler. She runs Before We Go blog, and also does lots of amazing work and wonderful interviews, including Patrick Rothfuss recently
Oh, nice.
with Grimdark Magazine. Her and John Morrow and Adrian. Man, they've got such a wonderful thing going.
Very cool.
Um, EL says, what do you want your readers to walk away with? What a good question.
I mean, the first is obviously entertainment, right? A distraction from the real world and just to walk away invigorated, right? To have a true hero story where you see a complete arc of a character and, you know, basically be reminded of just great traditional stories and heroism, right?
Mm,
Because that's really what I'm going for. I'm not trying to have villains that are sympathetic, and I'm not trying to make it all doom and gloom with too much realism. I want it to be very balanced so that you walk away wanting to read more and really wanting to dive deep, into adjacent characters because my third novel is going to be a spin-off of a character that's introduced at the end. And so I want you to walk away like, oh, I dig this story is complete. Like I love how it ended,
Mhm.
but I really would like to see more from these characters and also where some of the side characters could spin off too.
I don't recall ever speaking with an author that was so sure of what he wanted or she wanted it to be, and then doing
Hmm.
that and continue. Like, you're very sure of what you are wanting and what you're doing and how you're
Yeah.
doing it. That's super cool. And that's not always the case. You kind of just ride the wave as you're going. And I
Yep.
love that you are really having this foundation that you're building on.
Yep.
Super cool.
Thank you.
Of course. Hail the Lord says the Black Crown is an awesome story. I enjoyed it. Oh man, that's so cool. I'm so glad to hear from somebody who's read it already. I'm about to dive into it. That's awesome. I'm glad you loved it, and congrats, John. And then I have to throw in my pops. He's here joining us,
Hey,
watching,
cool.
listening. He's working, so he'll be in. Thanks, pops. Appreciate that. Um, let's see. One of the things that I've been a little bit better at, not much, is trying to speak and then also do the comments. Man, it's
Oh yeah.
tricky.
Oh yeah.
Um, Sam Paisley, thank you for being here. He's an indie author. The Elements of Time
Nice.
is his series. He says, "Hello, fellow beardos. Working late tonight. Glad to have this interview to keep me company." There you go,
Cool.
man. Don't get fired though. Like do your thing, man. Thank you for being here. And yes, Sam, you did. I did a wonderfully bad Canadian accent earlier. Stick around, you might get it again. Um, so, tell us about a couple themes or tropes that you really try to explore with these novels.
Yeah, the first one, which is kind of a funny story. Before I decided to self-publish, I did years ago, throw some pitches to literary agents, and you know, they're obviously their wish lists are a bit strange these days, and they I was working with one writing coach early on, so editing as I was actually writing the book and then getting writing lessons, and they wanted to completely cut my intro to the book because it had a damsel in distress style
Hmm.
intro. And basically, she was like, well, you should basically have it to where, she wouldn't need to be saved by the main character. And I'm thinking, hmm,
That's not what you
that,
wrote.
yeah, that's not what I wrote, but it also takes away from his heroic nature.
Mm.
And the whole point of that scene is for him to have that turning point in his life where he gets a chance to do something meaningful, right? To turn his life around. And I'm like, I 100% agree that, let's have the character be strong and assist in the scene, but I'm like, I can't cut it. I believe in men standing up for women. That's the
My
right thing to
God.
do.
My
I'm
God.
like, trope or not, that is, that's what we're supposed to do. And so I'm like, that's a message I want to leave in the book throughout the whole thing of you stand up for those that are, in trouble, in bad situations. You don't just walk past, you don't cower in fear to a tough situation. You do the right thing. And that's what my character does. So, there's that trope, but you know, going back to kind of my comment on having kind of a balanced story, you have a paragon, you have true heroism, and you have true evil. But what I like to do is have what I call healthy doses of realism in it.
Hmm.
Every character, every reader will be able to find a character that they can relate to. I mean, hopefully not the villain, that'd be a little bit scary, but
Right.
they're relatable because the things that they have went through in the story are things that a lot of us have experienced or some of us have. But in regards to, realism in the sense of what's happening in today's, in life today, I wanted to make it to where you could be like, oh, what that character, what that villain is doing on a political scale, or, using the media to manipulate folks like, ah, I just witnessed that, right, on the
Right.
news, or I just witnessed that, and with it being centered in Detroit, anyone that knows anything about Detroit, they've had so many corrupt politicians,
Mm.
people in the police, governors, mayors, especially, that it's like that is. is real to Detroit. So it's something that you can take out of the story and to be able to compare to modern day life. So I like having that balance, but then having the escapism that pulls you away from all the doom and gloom of real life and gives you, an optimistic story. And everything in the book, all the locations are real. They're legitimate to modern day Detroit. All the directions, the streets. I literally went to such detail that the directions in certain scenes, when like the gargoyles flying, following a criminal, I literally went to Google Maps and made the directions legitimate in all the locations.
That's legit.
And I did the same thing with like the neuroscience aspect of the book too. But I really wanted it to have that balance of escapism and realism. And so folks that are fans of, like Watchmen, for example, that was kind of a breaking of age story because it had the escapism, it had real heroes, it had real villains, and then it had the ones that are kind of in the middle.
Mm,
Mine are just either straight heroes and straight villains, but what it did is it did bring to light, some of the things that happened in the 1970s, that wasn't real good in regards to war and media, and what would real humans do to heroes if they existed, right?
mm.
If they had superhuman abilities. So yeah, that's I've really had to drive that home basically.
That just kind of hits home what I said earlier. You knew what you wanted to do, and this was
Mhm.
your way of mapping that out. And man, that's respectable too. It's there's a couple comments I loved over here. Sam says, as an artist, you would never let a publisher or anyone change my art to tell a different story.
Yep.
Totally with you, BA. Kudos to you. Yes,
Yeah.
you weren't just
Yep.
like, all right, I'll back down and kind of make it what you want.
Yeah.
You did your thing.
Yep.
Love that. And then Tim's like, whoa, 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 solid values in art and literature. How dare you? No,
I
it's
know.
respectable. I love it. So much like you're hitting, I very much admire that, is what I'm saying. Um, maybe I'm not quite sure of the context. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Laura. Laura Huey, another wonderful indie author. She says, does anyone get on the people mover in the book? Not, I don't know what that
Mm.
means. Explain in
Mm.
the comments, and we'll come back to that one. 1970. Never mind about the people. Oh, sorry. Well,
Oh, it must be something in Detroit. Maybe it's the new transit or something there. So
oh,
that's not in it, but what I did bring into it, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, is a lot of people don't realize they started a like subway project way, way back in the day. Yep, and there are also a ton of salt mines and in Detroit or underneath Detroit. So that plays into some scenes in the book. So again, I pulled a lot of history into the story from Detroit and some tidbits of knowledge that a lot of people wouldn't know that I didn't know until I started deep diving, looking for ideas to make the story really unique. So,
I
yep.
love that. So it's funny. My mom grew up in Livonia.
Yep.
It's right. I knew you would know it. It's right on
Oh,
the outskirts. It's a part of
yep.
Detroit. Um, Actually, by 8 Mile for you Eminem fans, she grew up
Okay.
on 9 Mile. Um, but
Yep.
what I was going to say is, well, maybe I've forgotten what I was going to say. I do that a lot. But no, I think I just loved the point of you being inspired. You grew up in Michigan, right?
Yep.
Using what you're familiar with, what really excites you, and man, that's also what I find exciting about your story. Is one of the many things is the location.
Yep.
Um, so, what were some foundational books or comics, graphic novels, anything you want to kind of throw out there that was really a foundational
Mhm.
um, item to you?
Yeah, like I said, Animorphs was really what kickstarted my interest in prose. And then I segued into Smallville, so TV series about Superman and all of the adjacent characters. And from there, I actually got really into Ayn Rand. So got into reading Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. So really focusing on individualism, which I really appreciated, and just the level of detail that she wrote in regards to dialogue and just all of the details of locations and all the scenery was just really eye-opening. And then again, films like Inception and really heavy into Christopher Nolan films and Zack Snyder films. And Zack Snyder films really brought that grit and again those healthy doses of realism into storytelling and just that visual aspect that he can do with movies like 300 and Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
That's what I emulated in my mini comic. And the covers, like, they're dark and they're gritty, but the story is about, again, true heroics and optimism. So it blends it because for me, and I don't mind, like the Marvel films that are really lighthearted and bright, but I'm not a fan of something that's just completely dark and too depressing. Being able to, again, blend the light and the dark into a visual and writing aspect, I really admired. So, yeah, all of those creations inspired me.
It totally makes sense then, asking kind of re-upping on this question as I did. The really what set home with you was writing, of course, but
Hmm.
also those visual aspects of stories, movies,
Yep.
and series that you grew up on, and things that really inspired you visually.
Hmm.
And I don't get a lot of those inspirations when I talk to the authors that I do.
Hmm.
Lots of it's like The Hobbit, which I love. I totally
Oh,
love
yeah.
those answers.
Hmm.
But it's cool to see. I kind of relate with that more because I didn't find literature, my love for it, until I was 29. I'm 33.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a little later when I found out that I was passionate about it. So
Hmm.
what I can relate with the most is those visual aspects.
Hmm.
I've always been there as far as movies and series and stuff like that. It's just a newer thing for me now that I get to read this in such a better detail.
Hmm.
Um, almost the same kind of story as what you were saying. It's a really hard time in my life. Never really tried picking up a book after high school. I did, and I was like, oh man,
Hmm.
here we go. This is going to be the start of something I'll always do.
Yep.
That's super cool. I want to say, Timo Burnham,
What's
thank
up,
you
Timo?
for popping in, man. I always know when it's him because that picture.
Hmm.
I was like, yep, I know who that is. So thank you for popping in here, brother. And E.L. Montague says Ayn Rand had a very personal perspective to bring to
Hmm.
her work.
For sure.
I'll have to check that out. I'm not familiar.
Oh yeah, she was a phenomenal writer.
So, out of the characters that you bring to us in this duology, uh,
Hmm.
tell us about one that was the most fun to write, and
Hmm.
maybe a little like you, if there are any of those that are more like you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the main character, Dread Knight, who is the gargoyle. In human form, his name is Slade Allen. He was definitely the most fun to write, being able to create a truly heroic creature. Again, that, a lot of the things he goes through in human form are things that I experienced in life. His story arc kind of follows my story arc in my life, right? Starting from, being at that kind of lowest level of your life, you're trying to find something that inspires you, something that gives you meaning, and then, battling through real world difficulties to then get towards the light, find love, right?
Mm,
Have a child in my case, things like that. That's how the story progresses of, again, that character finding themselves, becoming a true hero, saving others, and again, kind of flying into the light. And
I dig
also
that.
just with it being a gargoyle, as I mentioned, there's a lot of biblical and supernatural lore. And, I grew up Catholic, and there's a lot of, people that believe they put them on cathedrals to be so intimidating and scary that they could keep demons and evil spirits out of the church.
Mm.
And whether or not that's true or not, I loved that concept, right, of a hero like Hellboy, for example, that's so scary looking that people would think he might be a demon, but in fact, like he's pure of heart and he's a
Mm,
true hero. And then, what I did is I took it a step further and, you have Batman that at times has like the no kill rule. And then you have the Punisher that has no problem killing bad
yeah,
people.
for sure.
I did something unique in the sense that since he's tied to angels or, he's a celestial creature in essence, he actually has the ability to sense whether or not something has a soul or if they have any remnants of humanity left in them. And so when he's facing off with a foe, he can sense that, is this person redeemable or
Mm,
not?
wow.
And if they have no soul because maybe they've undergone too many mind control serum treatments, basically he can tell like, hey, if I don't stop this person, he's just going to continue to kill people or wreak havoc. So all bets are off at that point, and he can do what he needs to do because they don't have a soul. At that point, they're not human, essentially.
That's
So,
super unique, man. I've never even
yeah,
thought about that perspective.
yep. So there's so much tie-ins to biblical events and again, just supernatural lore that you have your main story. Obviously you have this team of vigilantes fighting this villain and his army of super soldiers, but there's also side stories that really take you back in history and how this magical grimoire was created and all the history behind it. And there's some mystery of how they get to uncovering, what's going on with that grimoire. Yep. And so people are going to find it really intriguing because it's so much more than just a story about a hero and a team of vigilantes. Um, so yeah, that character and just that kind of celestial tie-in was just so much fun to write. And
How
yeah,
long did it
yeah.
take you to come up with that idea really? Like when did you kind of start brainstorming that perspective? Like he gets to make these decisions based on whether should I do something more extensive because there's no
Yeah.
saving this person.
Well, that's what was cool and unique about this experience was I had the imagery in my head and kind of the base kind of plot of, a heroic gargoyle saving Detroit. I never expanded on that for like 5 years because
Okay.
I was just so busy with work and life, and I kind of underestimated myself. I literally just came up with it as it went on. I started with just that one night, right? Kind of at my lowest moment. I started writing, and it just everything naturally flowed. Like I immediately had the initial locations, the character names just would pop up, and then while I was at work, like I'm the type, I have really, really bad ADHD. And so all day long, I'm thinking about what do I need to do? I'm thinking about this story. And so at work, I would just have a scene pop up in my head and I'd just quickly write it down, or I'd have an idea for this mind control serum or, this character or this scene. And I would just get it out and it just flowed as I would write those ideas. And then I would go back. And what I did was, I wrote the start of the story and then I had the ending of the story complete. And then I kind of did it in chunks and then I would go back, edit, and then marry all these scenes and ideas together. So I didn't write it from really the beginning to the end. I kind of glued it together and then perfected it along the way. And initially, I wrote it as just one book that in standard format was like 680 pages, like 170,000 words.
Mhm.
But then I was like, I'm going to split it up into two and all of that. So yeah, I didn't really sit down and brainstorm in advance. I got to that point where I'm like, I need an outlet. I just need to I have an idea. I don't
Yeah.
know how deep it is, but once I started,
Mm.
it just came out, and it was. I look back and I'm like, I actually, when I reread the book, I'm like, I can't believe I wrote this. Like, I can't believe I came up with these ideas and I was able to phrase things the way I did. And so, to any people that aren't writers but want to be, it's like, don't question yourself, don't overthink it. Just just let it flow. Just write. Don't worry about perfection. You can edit it. There's so much, you have all the time in the world. Just start with an idea and see what happens, and you might just pleasantly surprise yourself.
You're really hitting. I'm glad that you said that at the end. To like anybody who's wanting to write, you're actually speaking to somebody who that really influenced right there. Because
Mhm.
I at first tried to pants, and I lost the story as a. So I know I need to outline somewhat.
Mhm.
And my idea of doing this personally, and I hope some people can relate with this. Um, I want to have a rough outline, a beginning, middle, end. I know what's going to happen as far as the big picture, but I know that creatively for me, like I know there's going to be stuff that I'm filling in as I go. And that's the most exciting part that I am looking forward to. And kind of what you're saying that you did. You had an idea of what you wanted to do. And then as you wrote, these ideas kind of just came to you and it flowed with the story and gave you that creative freedom to really make it yours, right?
Mhm. Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
that's wonderful. So I would love to have you tell us about your campaign,
Yeah.
like what makes you so different. Um, and it really is so different. I love this, guys. Very unique. So tell us all about what you're doing as far as
Mhm.
that. Yeah, shoot.
Yeah. So I went a different route than a lot of folks, as I didn't self-publish on Amazon. I don't have them printing my books. Since I'm tied into the comic book community, and as I mentioned, with how expensive comic books are to create, they use crowdfunding websites such as Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and Fund My Comic. And the whole idea for them is, again, they would start the comic, give you some preview pages, and then they would ask people, hey, will you fund this for me so that I can afford to finish this creation? And then in return, you get to choose what package of products you receive. Sometimes the books are done in advance. Sometimes people have to wait 6 months or a year, depends on to the extent of the comic. And so what I wanted to do was follow the same kind of mindset, control who the printer is, control every aspect of the project. And I had everything done prior to the campaign starting, and there's a 60-day period where people purchase it and you try to hit a goal. And as soon as that's done, you can start shipping to people. So as soon as that 60 days was done, I was shipping to people. And I'm past that point now. So what happens is you just go to Indiegogo.com, for example, search Vigilantes Creed. My campaign pops up, and there's a bunch of different what they call perks or options. And since there's so many products, there's a lot of options. You can get every item individually if you want, or if you just want to start with book one, for example, you can. Or I have bundle packages where you can get both novels or both novels in one mini comic. Or what is called the featured perk on the top is I call it the Let's Get Physical package. It's everything that's a physical item. And so you get both the novels, you get all three versions of the mini comic, because one is black and white art, one has a painted cover, and one has the Corey Barton cover. And then you get four free art prints that you saw. You get two free large bookmarks. You get a free trading card, and it's $50. So you get like five actual physical items plus all the freebies for $50. So it's like a $10 average, even for a novel. Or again, you can get the duology, which the Beard has, which is like $30. So you get two novels into one. So it allows you to choose what you want because there's a lot of items. And then once you create your quick little profile, you purchase it, and I ship within 2 days.
That's
Reality, I'll ship
amazing.
it. I'll ship it within one day, unless it's a Saturday. Then I have to wait till Monday because of the post office. So it's just like Amazon in terms of it's readily available. You get to choose whatever you want. But what's different is I control the packaging and the shipping. So I can put it in a really sturdy, box. Essentially, I
It was
foam wrap.
wonderfully wrapped.
Yeah, I foam wrap everything so that the corners are protected. Nothing can be damaged because with Amazon, you kind of don't know what you're going to get in
Mm,
terms of damages. So I get it out to you. And the other part of it too is you're helping a small business or small businesses across the board, right? My artists, myself, and the printer and the platform itself, and they just keep a small percentage, whereas Amazon, they keep a really hefty chunk of what you buy on there, sadly. So it's just a different avenue to where, let's say you're a new author and you want to recoup the costs of your cover art because you really want to get a great piece of cover art. If you have a decent following on Twitter or you know enough people that are interested, you put it on one of these sites, it costs you absolutely nothing. You are it's direct to market with you in the end, and it gives you that ability to recover all those costs. And then after that, I mean, you can set up your own website, you can put it on Amazon, but if you want to get the most out of your product, that's what these crowdfunding sites allow you to do. And again, it allows me to give you extra goodies. On Amazon, I wouldn't be able to give you those bookmarks, those art prints, the trading cards because I'm not packing it up myself or anything like that, and I don't have control over the printer. And I also get to inspect every book to make sure it's flawless. I have printed some stuff with Amazon in the past, and some books had slanted text for no reason, shifted cover art, and so it allows me to provide a premium product at a very affordable cost, especially with the bundle packages. So yeah, it's
I
just a different storefront, really. Yeah.
Man, it's not only that. I just dig that whole idea. I didn't
Hmm.
know where I thought about that process that you're actually doing, and if that was possible,
Hmm.
um, eh, with a website that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. And I've heard of Indiegogo, and now I'm in love with that idea. I love that. Basically, what I'm seeing over here in the comments, and I'll put them up. Um, I put the link, guys. I know it's kind of a longer link, but real quick, Indiegogo.com, and then just search Vigilantes Creed. And of course, that link will be in my description.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, I mean, that's the other thing I'm trying to just bring awareness to sites like these so that writers can get more funding so that they can create more projects, right? Because a lot of people, they put it on Amazon, they get a very small portion of the price because of what Amazon keeps. And so it may take them a long time to recoup that money to then be able to make the next book and have just as good or better cover art. And a lot of people, sadly, they skimp on the cover art out of fear of not recovering their cost.
Mm,
So if you build a bit of a following, you do some marketing in advance, crowdfunding is a good option to be able to provide more and get more back so that you can keep creating products for folks. And yeah, so just trying to bring awareness to that to maybe help some authors out, but also bring awareness just to the general public of, hey, we're not all on Amazon, but there are authors, on these crowdfunding sites or alternatives. So don't forget about us, more or less.
well,
So,
that's hitting a huge point of what I'm here to do. Like that is very cool, and I think that, like I said before, it's a path that I find people are going to go after once they know it's there. So,
well, the other thing too is, I mean, you can put t-shirts on there. I have lunch boxes on there, retro
mm,
90s style lunch boxes. I have
love it.
puzzles. So, and then you can ship it all together. Like that's very hard to accomplish with Amazon. And so it allows you to expand on what you can provide folks, right?
Sure. And
And that's just really, really exciting.
very much so, because like you said, you order 15 products or something like that. Even if somebody wants your product, they go to your profile on this Indiegogo, and
Hmm.
you can pack it all yourself. You're doing the thing, man. And
Hmm.
and I love how it all came together. I think that hits home a lot of different points. Just like they're not all going to be separate. You're not going to get 15 boxes. It's one person kind of taking care of this, and you're supporting many different small individual people.
Yep. And the other thing that a lot of actually big indie folks that are doing is after they've released a couple novels on Amazon and they're getting a following, they'll release a special edition or a hardcover, right, with like painted edges and like really, really cool, unique duologies or omnibuses, and they'll put
Mm,
those on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I think Zach Argyle has one now or just did one.
mm.
Zamil, I think it is.
Sorry, yeah, the Guns
Yeah,
Metal
he,
Gods.
he he just had a $100,000 campaign. He brought all of his readers to get this awesome, just monster of a book. No pun
Hmm.
intended. It's about monsters. He's into the Lovecraftian style stuff like me, and so you would not be able to get Amazon to print that unique of a book. You would have to sell it on Amazon, rely on their shipping. They'd take a huge chunk. So it provides another outlet for well-established authors as well to provide a really unique product for folks. And so I think it's great, you know. So
You hit so many points that I just wasn't even aware of just 10 minutes ago.
mm,
Even well established, and I've seen it on Kickstarter. That's one I'm most familiar with, and it sounds like it's very similar.
mm.
You
Oh,
get
and real quick too, I have digital options and you can put digital options on there so you don't have to rely on Kindle or anything. So that's also, people can provide audiobooks, they can provide digital copies, everything on there as well. Because I know not everyone's a fan of using Kindle and things like that. So you can put everything on there.
the
So
options are there and ever present, and
yep.
with the equal or much more than other big people like Amazon or Barnes and Nobles.
Hmm.
Um, they're doing something for the independent um, creators, and
Yep.
that's super cool. Um, excuse me. And Joshua Walker says something that's absolutely just rings a bell. It's like, and your level of actual ownership is so much greater than KDP or similar.
Hmm. Yep.
He's hitting home the point that I instantly thought of. It's like once people are privy with this, get really they start to learn what you're doing, especially
Hmm.
you. Uh, it's going to get a lot more traction, and it's just another really exciting avenue for
Hmm.
independent publishers.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, so, as far as you being a writer and loving comics, stuff like that, doing what you do and what we're talking about right now, what would you say has been your biggest struggle doing it independently?
I think it's really being able to do that research to find those avenues that we just talked about, and also learning patience, especially when it comes to cover art. I kind of touched on that earlier. I initially had book one with different cover art, and it was a good cover. It had more of a retro horror style to it, but it just never really connected with me. I felt like it wasn't giving enough of the character on the cover. And I think a lot of us suffer from that impatience where you're like, man, I've spent 6 years on this. I really want people to read it. All right, I found an artist. Let's just go. Let's just put it on Amazon and the people will come.
Mm.
Amazon does not help the people come to you at all. In fact, books with different titles, when you try to search your own book, will pop up before yours. Yours with the exact title and name may not even show up on the first page.
Yeah, I've actually experienced this.
Yeah, if you're not paying for the promotion or marketing on there, there's a good chance no one's going to find you. You have to market yourself. And I didn't, I was too impatient the first time. And so the second time around, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to connect with artists online, find people that they're following, and just find reference material to find the perfect artist for me. Because this time I'm like, I'm going to invest in proper cover art and I'm going to go all out and then take it a step further and, try to garner a following, get connections, and try to crowdfund it so that I don't have to go through all those struggles with Amazon and rely on that lack of marketing. Instead, work with people like yourself and other folks that are generous enough to bring you on their channel so that you can promote and find more kind of grassroots readers. And then later on, you can toss it on Amazon and and see what happens. And so, yeah, having that patience, building up that following, getting connected with people I did it over a course of like 12 months and I went really hard.
Mm,
It really, really paid off to where all of that cover art, all of that mini comic art, I've recouped those costs and now I can literally ship on demand and just focus on getting out to Comic Cons and events and getting my name out there, get reviews and the biggest thing that us novelists need are reviews and word of mouth. Because again, we can't rely on a publisher. We cannot rely on Amazon. So now that my book is out there to over 100 people now, and hopefully more soon, they can hopefully have a great experience and be like, hey, this really unique novel, right, with a mini comic, you got to check it out. And then hopefully that also will help other novelists, you know, hear my story and be like, okay, maybe take my time, do a little bit more research on artists, because there's a lot of preconceptions out there. There's just people, there's only this small group of novel cover artists. You have to use them because they did this book, or
mm,
you have to resort to AI. It's like, no, you don't have to pay $1,000 for a cover art. Trust me, I didn't, and neither
mm,
do you. You can get a full wraparound cover that showcases more than one character or more than one scene for an affordable price. You just have to look. You have to
mm,
talk to people, and comic book artists are your friend, even as a novelist. They can create different styles and they can help you come up with a good layout. If you give them some creative freedom, they'll really help you. So don't be shy to get some advice and reach out for help. And you may, just like me, find a diamond in the rough that you're just absolutely in love with your cover. And then now I get to relax. I don't need to worry about that. Where that first time, like it just didn't connect with me, and I wasn't content. So yeah.
that is a whole lot of gold, as I like to call it on my channel. So many amazing tips, experience, what you've dealt with, your knowledge, where you started, what you've learned, where you're at now, what you're doing, what you're going to be doing as far as your marketing,
Mhm.
which is definitely the number one struggle when it comes to when I ask that question, what was the biggest piece of
Oh
advice
yeah.
or the biggest struggle you had as an indie publisher? It's definitely the marketing. And it has to be, right? Like,
Mhm.
nobody's going to know about what you're doing unless somebody knows about it, and how you have to find those avenues in which to inform people and get good feedback. There's so many just different avenues that come back to being an indie publisher.
Yep.
um, and thank you for all those tips, man. I think
Oh, for sure.
that's for sure answered some of the questions that I have, and I can imagine so many others that will watch this and are watching. um, Somebody that can relate with you, Mikkel. Yeah, very cool art style.
Thank you.
Gotta like your cover. I went through two before I got the one I loved.
Yep.
And he also agrees. I wish I'd done more research before publishing.
Well, and that's another quick piece of advice I would give based on my experience is never stop marketing yourself. Even if you're on your fifth book, don't forget to market your first book,
Mm,
right? Because the more followers you get or the more people you meet in real life, make sure they're aware of everything you've created, right? You can
yeah,
always find readers for every one of your creations. And just like Mike had just said there, just because you created a cover doesn't mean it's set in stone, right? If you come up with a better idea later on, or you come up with the funds, because if you really really love that story and you want to get the most out of it and get it in the hands of as many people as possible, just create a new cover, right? Keep try again. Don't just throw in the towel because that initial piece of cover art did not connect with folks or it did not reach folks. Again, I have had tenfold the success with my new cover art than I did on the first cover art for the first book. So if I would have just given up, I would have been stuck. I would have hit a wall. So again, just always keep being creative, and don't be afraid to reinvent one of your books, or one of your cover arts, and just always market everything that you have. Don't stop, and market it in different ways. Word things differently, give writing samples, do some little pieces of art. There's so many different things. Don't just do a single elevator pitch over and over. Like, you gotta refresh it and stuff, because you may pick up people that initially weren't sold on it.
Kind of tailor it
Yeah.
as you go and learn from. Man, that's great information. Um, so as far as these, I'll kind of put these two together. What are you working on currently, and
Mhm.
what's next for you?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, my main focus is marketing, trying to get the most out of this campaign as possible. Because what I can do now is use any future funds for, again, the next project, right? Cover
Mhm.
art for book 3, which I hope to start writing here in the next actually week. Now
Oh,
that
that's
I'm
amazing.
done with the tough part of the campaign, and then I may dabble in audiobooks for these 2 novels, because there are a lot of people that just don't have the time to sit down and read physical books. They may be able to listen to it at
That's
work,
a
and
whole audience on itself right there.
that's another thing with folks. Like, hey, don't just think there's only one avenue, right? Don't think you have to necessarily pay someone a lot of money to do an audiobook. Again, think outside the box. Do whatever you can to get as many readers or listeners as possible. So I'm going to be investigating that, and then hopefully in the next year, start working on the full comic issue for Vigilante's Creed, and give that full experience for everyone that likes comics, and maybe bring some of the novel readers over as well to give them a new product. So
Yeah, so when I start buying as many comics as I do novels, I'm gonna send my wife's like angry texts to you because you're gonna be at fault, man. No. So I'm super excited for just what you're doing, what you've been doing, diving in and talking more about your books. And
yeah,
yeah, this has been one of the most eye-opening um, as far as knowledge and stuff like that, man. I had no idea that that was possible. So that's super cool. Um, excuse
and
me.
then I hope to, I'm going to be ramping up my YouTube channel, not just about my own stuff, but I hope to do videos just promoting other people. I do as much as I can to promote folks in comics and novels on Twitter, but I want to start doing videos and streams just showcasing all the great stuff that's out there, whether it's crowdfunding or Amazon. Just try to help other people out, because I mean, us indies, all we have is us indies,
Yep.
right? So I'm all about just helping each other out, and just trying to bring as many mainstream readers to us as possible.
Yeah, I think that's well in the works.
Mhm.
Somebody had mentioned Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews did a video a few days back with 73 booktubers,
Mhm.
me being one of them, and like half of these people's of the booktubers' favorite books of 2023 were indie books.
Yep.
Like it's on its way, guys. It's people are starting to see the quality in what individuals and independent publishers are doing, and it's super exciting to sit back and like watch and be a part of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's where you're going to get the most unique stories, because there's no chains, there's no shackles on anybody. You can create whatever you want. I think it's going to resonate with folks more.
I think so too. Tim says the coolest part about being an indie author is the community, so much support and love.
Mhm.
Man, it just you can see that in your story too. Just you just said it, like you're a community guy yourself. You want to bring
Yep.
awareness to so yourself and so many people that are doing the exact same thing as you, and
Mhm.
that's like a constant that I've seen throughout this community. Like what Tim says, it's never
Mhm.
been like this Mine's better than yours, or
Yeah.
I secretly hope that my book outdoes yours. It's everybody's just very supportive, and we all want to be,
Well,
part of each other's story. It's really cool.
yeah. Well, and the thing too with, indie comics and novels, right? In reality, most of us are maybe writing 1 to 3 books a year or something. So there's a lot of downtime in between that for readers, right? Give them stuff to fill them up in between. And then when you help out another author, they may share your work with their readers, and then everybody wins and everything grows.
That's a
So,
wonderful point, and that's something that I've personally tried to do. I'll probably do it. No, I know I will do it to your book. Every single interview that I'm in, it's like we start talking about other books. It's like, oh, I'm pulling off the shelves, especially people like you that I'm just really impressed and inspired by. Man, I love what you're doing.
thank you.
So tell everybody where we can follow you as far as
Yeah.
like your socials and
Yep.
where every place that you can grab your book. It's just
Mhm.
it's Indiegogo is the only place, right? Or is there others?
Also fundmycomic.com, which is a smaller crowdfunding site. So they're both the same in regards to prices and all of that. So real easy. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at BA Turner_VC. Basically, Twitter, Facebook, or Twitter or Instagram. If you just look up BA Turner or Vigilantes Creed, you'll immediately come across me or the art. So you can find me on all three sites. I'm
I
also
will
on
have
Vero.
all of those links in the description, by the way, guys.
Sweet. I'm also on Vero if anyone uses Vero. Um, but yeah, aside that, I'm on YouTube as well. Same thing, just BA Turner. You'll find me on there, and yeah, I'm
Amazing.
around.
I love that, man. So this has been a huge learning experience for me, something that I can investigate and make part of what I hope to be my journey and tell other people about and
Mhm.
show this video and just share what you're doing, man. It's super cool. So
Yeah,
um,
and
I just want to thank you for being here.
well, thanks for having me. And I mean, for writers out there, whoever, if you ever want to shoot me a message or ask me questions, right? You're curious about things or anything, just reach out. I'd love to help and share my experience with folks. So
That's awesome. Uh, that's a guy right there that's just he's willing to give you his experience and just help the community. And if you're having an issue and he's gone through it, he's willing to
mm,
throw you his experience. That is
yeah,
awesome. Thank you for
for
that.
sure. Well, for
Um,
sure.
who are a few people I should talk to, interview in the future?
Ooh, well, John, if you haven't yet, for sure.
Okay.
I would say Brian Asher. He's
Ooh,
a fantastic writer as well. He's got some supernatural kind of like vampire books out there.
I'm pumped. I just actually got his book last month, and I'm super pumped to dive into it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
What was it again? I can't remember the name of the book.
I have it on my shelf,
Yeah,
probably.
it's like I can't see it, but
Something Ashes. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
me too.
But yeah, yeah, fantastic guy and writer there. I mean, there's just
Those are two
so many good
wonderful.
writers. I mean, Timo, which you saw pop up.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's just TJ Marquis, I think is how it's pronounced. But yeah, there's a ton of guys. Anytime I retweet somebody, it's probably a creator, whether it's comic or novels, and they're probably very worth interviewing. So
Well, I'll reach out to those and yeah,
yeah,
definitely love the recommendations
oh
because
for
man, I
sure.
just love the we're all doing something different and I think we could all contribute to this community in some way. Somebody's looking for that answer that you have in your experience, whether it's you or another author or comic book illustrator or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. So
Yeah,
um
the other one I'd recommend is Richard from Iron Age Media. He
ooh,
has his Anvil magazine, which has short stories in it, and all those authors in that magazine kind of series he has, they all have novels out there. So that's a very good outlet to where you can find, 5 to 10 authors per issue that if you really like their short story, you can then go find them and buy their novels. So I think that's a
That's super valuable.
really good one there too. So he's a cool dude. I just had a stream with him right before this. So
Oh,
yeah,
no way. That's
yeah,
sick, man.
yeah.
So John's definitely going to be back on the channel. I've had him one time for
Oh, nice.
his book release, but yeah,
Yep.
he's been a huge supporter of what I'm
Oh yeah.
doing, and me his too since the very like beginning. He's such a good
Same.
guy.
Yep.
Um, and why we're here today, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for letting me borrow you for a little bit, man. I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait to dive into this and just continue to see this journey you're on.
Yeah.
Thank you for y'all that stuck around and joined live. Man, that's
Yeah.
just the best.
Thank you, Chad.
And anybody who's going to be coming on in the future as well. Tomorrow
Mhm.
night at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'll be interviewing J. Patricia Anderson. She wrote Your Blood, Your Bones and Blood, I believe. It's
Mm.
either Your Blood or Bones, Your Bones and Blood. It's so dark and just like I call it like deliciously dark. It's so good.
Nice.
So she'll be on tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. Of course, do the YouTube thing that I have to say, which is like, share, subscribe. That helps me
Yep.
do my thing and helps the people that I'm talking to as well.
Yep.
Um, and until next time, guys, thank you so much for being here and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everybody.